Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Authors Unchained. Today, I have the real and true pleasure of speaking with one of my favorite authors in the Why Choose genre, Miss Kris Butler. I found Kris probably 2 years ago. I was going through a very intense fixation with ice figure skating, and someone recommended the Council series to me. And I dove in and didn't come up for, nearly a week. Um, it was exactly what I like in books. It was funny and it was intense and it was a little dark at times, but not too dark. And it had a really good character arc that moved from uh, I would say that it's about an FMC who's finding her power in a sense. And I have noticed that trend with just about all of her books, actually. And just today, I finished her last big standalone, which is called Cruel Steps. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today and ask her some other questions about what she enjoys about writing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her in. So let's see how that goes. All right. So Kris, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay.
Yay. So let's address the missing face first. We are not going to have video with you today, which is okay. But sometimes it's an interesting thing. People who write the kind of books that we write have to kind of protect their identity. It's not a safe world out there for some of us. And a lot of us may have families or jobs or occupations or hobbies that, you know, uh, kind of aren't going to go along well with writing fairly spicy smut. Um, so, have you struggled at all with having to sort of keep these parts of your life separate?
Um, Not really, because I think because of my job anyways, like I kind of always had to have separation of job
Okay.
and life.
Mhm.
So it kind of helped just prepare me for that.
Yeah, yeah. I quit teaching kind of before I started doing this, but if I had, I think I would be in kind of the same situation as a few people that I've interviewed so far. You're, I think, the fourth person who's been no face. So it's an ongoing kind of thing. I mean, a lot of us
Yeah,
are pretty personal about keeping that under wraps, and I totally get it.
yeah. And
All
it's
right.
interesting. I do
Mhm.
signings, so it's kind of interesting, but it's like people don't post those pictures usually a lot, so it kind of helps.
Right, right. You're not on it. You're not going to be on a YouTube channel forever
Right.
associated with that book name. Got it. Yeah, totally. All right. Um, so I don't know if you could hear you could hear my introduction, but I was talking a little bit about the council because that is the way that I found my way to you.
Yes, it was my first series.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was trying to kind of put my finger on what it was about that one that has just kind of stuck with me. Because if you're like me, I read a lot of books. And every year I might find maybe three or four that really, really stick with me. And I have to say that that series was one from that year. It just kind of stayed with me. And I don't know if it was that I got very fond of the female main character. Um, and I don't know, there were these moments that I felt like I could identify with her.
Mhm.
But beyond that, I think I just enjoyed the journey. Sometimes I read books and I don't feel like there's a lot of change in the characters from the beginning to the end. It's just watching them be put through the ringer and come out the other side.
Mhm.
But I remember feeling very like at the end of it, very um, like validated. I don't know how to explain it. Like the ending left me feeling okay, this is good. All right, now I can move on. I'm not worried about her. I'm not.
Well, that's awesome because that's kind of really why I started
Mm-hmm.
writing books was that, mental health was a huge thing with me, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to show like the things that, we all kind of struggle with, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
have that journey. And then I just kind of put, it's funny now because like I feel like that's probably like my, since it was my first book series, like
Mm-hmm.
the, like, not worst, but like the, my writing wasn't as strong then as I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it is now. And so, but it is still the most popular series by far. And I think it's because I just put everything that I loved about books in general into it as well.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to Large
Mm-hmm.
Harem and I want which is I love at the time. Like there wasn't very much of that at the time, and I still love it today. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I want a grumpy guy, and it's like so I just put like all my favorite things in this like series, and
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
is what people resonate with too.
I think the same thing with House of Marches. I jammed every trope that I've ever, well, except for I have not done and I haven't done the amnesia trope, but just about every other
Mm.
one I've jammed in there as hard as I can. I mean, like I was never going to write another series in my life. Like
Right?
if I
I mean,
liked it, it went in that book, in
yeah.
those books,
Well, I
right?
think when you first start out, you're not really sure if you will, if people are going to like it. So it's like, I hope
Right, right.
they did.
And you have an abundance of excitement. I'm not saying like every
Yes,
book isn't exciting, but boy, that
right.
first one, I mean,
I agree.
yeah,
That's
super
by far
exciting.
the quickest book I ever wrote was that first book. I think it was
Hmm.
like 3 weeks
Hmm.
or something. It was ridiculous.
I have heard the same thing from several people now. I think
Yeah.
it's sort of a universal experience with becoming a
Hmm.
writer is boy, that first book really just pours out of you.
Yeah.
And then you kind of feel, and then you feel like, wow, this is going to be so easy. I'm really good at this. And then maybe it's not quite as easy for the second and third book. Just saying.
Yeah. Then you get
Yeah.
expectations, and then your
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome and everything else falls
And
in.
we were talking about it in our sort of green room before we came on about the keeping track of stuff and how by
Mm.
the end of the fourth book or whatever, however long the series is, you're kind of just like, wow, I have a lot to keep track of now.
Yeah. And I'm like pretty meticulous
Yeah.
with my notes, but you change
Mm-hmm.
it like, like from first book, from the first time you write a book, and we go through so many edits, and it's like, which version of this was it actually now? Yeah. So
Oh
keeping that
yeah,
straight is definitely,
I did that. I did that like last night. I couldn't remember if one of my main male characters had been in the Coast Guard or the Army, and I had to go back and look like at the published book to try to figure it
yes.
out because I had written it in two ways and then made a decision when I was deep in edits and didn't remember what it
Yep.
was. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, tell me what we were just talking a little bit about mental health, which is another sort of thing that we have in common as writers and readers, I'm assuming.
Mm.
What mental health issues have you explored in your books? I know about anxiety, um, and I know about depression, but have there been other ones? I haven't read every single book yet.
Yeah, there's PTSD and trauma tend to
Mm-hmm.
be pretty big
Right.
themes. And my Tattooed Hearts series, the mom of the character's mom has bipolar, so it's about her experience kind of dealing with that. So
Okay.
that's like
Yeah.
a little bit different of a twist. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then anxiety, some idiot, one, yeah, the companion love trap.
Mm-hmm.
She's neurodivergent, has undiagnosed ADHD until she was older. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you did a caregiver family member to someone with
mhm,
a mental illness because I think that's so very common. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
We
and
all
she
think
was,
our parents are crazy, but a lot of them really are.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like she was undiagnosed, and then she finally got help, and so then like she ends up having a good relationship with her mom, but in the
Hmm.
beginning, like having to grow up and deal with that, and kind of like really
And
change
how
who she was as a
often,
person.
yeah, and
Hmm.
often they become the I mean caregiver isn't a good enough word.
Hmm.
It's more like
Parentified,
the
yeah.
there we go. Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
I
That is
had a lot of
awesome.
grief too, is like work through
Hmm.
that in a lot of these books too. There's usually some grief, but I don't
Yeah.
really, like, so mostly I feel like those things, I'm trying to think. I don't really do any
Mm-hmm.
personality disorders or things, but
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of have a story in the back burner of my mind somewhere with dealing with like Munchausen. I can never say that word right, but you know, where the
Munchausen
mom,
by
Munch,
proxy.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yes. I was like, I can spell it, but I can't pronounce it.
So many things for me too. Yeah, I heard someone talking the other day and they said Persephone. And I said, have I been saying Persephone wrong my entire life? And I had to go look it up. I was like, maybe I have. I started reading the Greek myths really early. Maybe I just put that in my brain
Hmm.
and never heard it correctly again. Yeah. Okay. So this actually kind of takes me to Emerson a little bit because I hadn't read a bully romance in a while. And I would say it's light on the bully. It's not
Hmm.
super. I mean, I think it's more about remembering bullying than actually,
Hmm.
well, there's a lot, there is still some shit in it, isn't there? Um, but Emerson is really interesting to me because she has been trying to sort of fight her way out of. She has that thing going that so many of us maybe have done where we're like, I am going to go to this new place and reinvent myself.
Hmm.
Everything is going to be good because I will be in a different place physically than I am now.
Hmm.
And I think it's like a common thing for people to think that, to think you can kind of outrun your problems, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you have an inspiration for Emerson? How did her story come to you?
Um, so I do love, you know, sports romance. I have a lot of sports romance. And so I was wanting to write,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
um, and I love dance as well. And so I kind of wanted to
Mm-hmm.
write a story about um, a dancer and football
Mm-hmm.
players. And originally, this was supposed to be part of a bully anthology, and then that kind of fell apart. But I already had kind of the
Oh, that's
story
interesting.
idea.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I kind of changed it to like, it wasn't her, you know, it wasn't the guy's already that bullying her, but it was the stepsister of
Mm-hmm.
the guy that she ends up liking.
Yeah.
Um,
I much prefer that myself. Yeah.
Me too. I was like, one of the things I was like, I don't really like to hurt my characters too much. So I
Right.
don't
And
like when the
it's,
guys hurt their girls too.
yeah. And I mean, a good grovel, it takes a long time for me to be okay with them. Like
Yeah,
a good portion of the book has to be making up for it, you know, and
yeah.
very few people have the pages to do it well. So yeah, I prefer that. I prefer when it's an outside entity that's bullying or it's very light and they
Hmm.
quickly figure out that that's what they want. Now, so Cruel Steps is not a wide choose in the sense of a reverse harem. But it's sort of, well, it's a,
Menage.
I guess it's an MFM,
Yeah.
and so it's sort of still poly, but yeah, but not a giant harem.
Hmm.
um and you've written other ones too, so I was just wondering, as like an author, what do you think the advantage of writing a 3-person instead of a 6-person story is?
Usually, because like that one was, like I said, was going to be in anthology, so I was kind of
So you're
trying
gonna
to
make it
keep it as a
shorter. Yeah.
standalone. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I was like, wanted it to be
Mm-hmm.
shorter. That still didn't really happen.
It's a
um,
really long
and then
book.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so like that was initially when I set it up, and so that's kind of how
Mm-hmm.
I went into that one. My other one that I have that is a menage is a shorter one. It was also part of an anthology, so that kind of is usually what I
Mm-hmm.
just because it is harder. I feel like in a standalone, unless they're really long.
Mm-hmm.
Which if you've read Pitch Slap, which is like 700 pages, uh, that's a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
That has 4 guys. So, and then 2 of the guys are together too. So, like, you know, that's a lot of racial relationship development,
It
especially
is,
because they
yeah.
didn't really know each other beforehand. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that is kind of just
Yeah.
where I started. And then as I was writing it, it was just those were the characters that felt, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like that needed to be together. So,
I think there should be more love for MFM and MMF. I think they're, I think they can be kind of soothing on your brain too as a
hmm.
reader. Um, there is like a, kind of a learning curve as you drive into a new story where you have to learn what everybody looks like, what their names are, what their pet names are for everyone, and
Mhm.
it can take a lot of like reading brain power to keep track of it. And I think that that is one of the things about Cruel Steps that I enjoyed. It was just two people to sort of keep track of, and I got like a lot more kind of attached to them too. I think
Mhm.
because it allows a lot more depth
Yeah.
of character. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
like,
you wrote. Mhm.
yeah, and I just like I yeah, you do fall in love with the other characters as well, like, Cody
Mhm.
and her friend.
Yes,
So
yes,
like
yes.
it kind of
Mhm.
allows those parts, and you still get the found family as that aspect of it because of
Mhm.
the people around them.
Yeah, I mean, what a great golden retriever you have made in this book. He is he's
And
just
so,
like exactly what I like in that sort of just positive, optimistic, like we're doing this, kind of energy that
it,
I
funny
adore.
enough,
Yeah.
it's like when I was writing it, like I felt like
Mhm.
Holden was gonna steal the show, and I was like, everyone's gonna love Holden, no one's gonna, even notice Coulter. And like after all the
Mhm.
arcs and all, everyone was like, oh, Coulter's my favorite. I was like, oh, okay, good.
Mhm. It's interesting how we can't always tell how that's going
I
to go.
know.
Yeah. Have you
I
ever
do love
had a
Coulter.
character who has taken over once you started writing?
Uh,
Like,
yeah,
have you ever
I'm
had
trying
one
to.
that kind of steals lines, steals scenes, and you're just like, okay, dude, you need to chill.
So Pixel in my Dark Confession series is kind of like that. She was just kind of supposed to be this little random side character, and then she kind of
Yeah, yeah,
becomes
yeah.
very humorous, and then now she's going to have eventually at some point have her own book. But
Hmm. Yeah,
there have
it's
been some other ones too. Oh, in the Council series, Tyler,
yes.
he wasn't
I
initially supposed to be there, and then he was like, "Hello,
Hi, I live here too.
yeah."
Yeah. That's great. I love those moments. So, I mean, this kind of brings us to what is your what is your process? How do you write? Do you make a lot of notes? Do you write an outline? Do you know scene by scene what's going to happen, or do you just pants it?
I'm a little bit of both. So
Mhm.
I initially did everything like in a notebook, wrote it. Like I process better writing things down, and so like outlining my characters, like putting their
Mhm.
traits, and who they are. I've tried to use like other apps and things now to like that way because I don't always have my huge notebook with me, but it just doesn't feel the same when I'm trying to build them. So I still will build them usually and then transfer it into like Campfire or Notion or something, just so I have
Oh,
access to
nice.
it whenever. But so I it just depends. So like most of the time, usually I have an idea for a story, and then the characters kind of emerge from that. The only one
Hmm.
that really was more character driven was my Dark Confession series because it was about a therapist who was going through depression. And so
Hmm.
it's like I knew I wanted that character to have a story. And then the mafia kind of just came into that one, uh, by like just hey, what would happen if a therapist got involved with mafia? Um, but so normally I do the characters and the story idea, and then I do more of like beats or scenes. So I like kind of know what parts I need to
Hmm.
write and what
Hmm.
you know what's going to happen in the book. But then once I get into that chapter, it's kind of whatever the characters
Right,
want from
right.
there.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I've been trying to get a little more organized about knowing where I'm going and less. I think the first book you can really let the muse just take you where you
hmm,
want to go, but
yeah,
then it's like the lanes get like narrower and
hmm.
narrower as the further
They're like,
you
oh,
write,
now I got
and
to tie up all these strings.
I've got to tie up all these strings, and I really can't add a new person here, even if they're talking to me, and I really um, which is a shame. I can see why some people just do standalones because boy, you get a
Hmm,
lot of creative. Um, I don't know, a lot of creative room when
hmm,
you don't have to tie it down or think about something that has to happen in a couple more
hmm.
books. Yeah. Um, so kind of a plotter plancer hybrid going.
Yeah, mostly plotted, but then once I'm
Mm-hmm.
like writing, it is kind of just
Mhm.
because like
Right.
sometimes I'll even have visioned it one way and then I get in and the character's like, no, we're gonna do this instead. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, even in I'm writing the fourth book. I'm finishing it up now. And even in this one, I have a character who is just he keeps wandering into scenes and kind of stealing them. And I'm like, you gotta stop. We can't do that every single scene. No, because he's just really good comic relief. And sometimes it's
hmm
like things are stressful, and I'm like, and here comes Colton. He's going to come talk to us now, say something really stupid, and then walk away, and we'll all laugh. But you can't do that too many times. Yeah, I completely get that. So do you have like a file where you keep track of eye color and scent? And I mean, I guess that's not as big in contemporary as it is in paranormal, but eye color and appearance and that kind of stuff.
yeah, so I will
Mm-hmm.
usually start with writing it down, but then yeah, I do have like this database
Yeah.
now where I created because yeah,
Mhm.
the more characters I have, the less I remember them at times. And then when I do have to go back, it's like,
Mhm.
so yeah,
What was
I
he
have a Google
like? Yeah.
sheet and a database,
Mhm.
so I kind of have it in two places.
Have you ever done any like series hopping in terms of do you just write straight through a series, or will you go and like take a break and write a new one and then come back and finish?
Yeah, I've done both. So like my first series I kind
Hmm.
of wrote through and then did a standalone and then did a
Hmm.
duet. But then I kind of started uh, writing one book of a series and then would because when I started writing the Dark Confession series, it was more of a darker, like because it was done with depression, and
Hmm.
so like I needed something after that to kind of change lanes a little bit. So I wrote Biting, which was a summer book, and so it's more rom-commy. So that was like a nice little like palate cleanser.
I don't think I've read that one. Yeah, that does not sound familiar. Okay, a rom-commy one. Cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll do that. I'll kind of switch in
Hmm.
between.
Do a little genre switch. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. And that kind of dovetails into are you a mood reader? Like what kind of stuff do you enjoy reading?
Yeah. So this year I've really, I started it last year, but I'm definitely this year totally in almost read just only MM books at this point. But I have like,
Hmm.
I'm in book club. So with my family,
Right.
so we have that book, which I have to read. And then I have books on that I have, downloaded that I like. So like
Yeah.
I have a book journal thing. And so I put, like, okay, these are the 12 books I'm going to read. But I always make
Hmm.
sure I put, at least one of my
Hmm.
choose book,
Yep.
a book club book, and then something on my TBR, and then the rest of the books can be MM. So it's like I kind of reward myself because I know that's what I'm going to mostly want to read.
Oh my God, that's funny. Have you read any of Rebecca Raith's books? She writes
Uh,
sporty MM stuff,
I
baseball.
can't
I'm trying to remember the name of
I
the
can't
last one
remember
that
if
I
I
read.
have read hers yet or if she's on my list to read.
Oh,
Because yeah,
I would
MM
do it
sports
soon.
ones are my favorite.
She's amazing. And she's written like I want to say I'm looking it up right now. Don't be
I
mad at me,
think I have.
Rebecca.
I think I do know what series you're talking about. I
Yeah,
remember
they've got like
seeing
kind
it.
of black and green covers, and I'm looking it up
Yeah,
right now. Hold on. Um, I've read, I actually need to read the last one that she put out, but I've read a couple of them. Um, I got, yeah, the binding is kind of the one that she got known for, but then she also has these wonderful MM sports. Um, Here we are. Head in the game, forbidden goals. That's how it
yep,
starts. Yep.
yeah. It's on my
Really,
on
really
my
good.
MM list, so I will. It'll
Mhm.
definitely get to it.
Yeah, I really like those. All right, so you're big into MM. You seem to
Mhm.
like contemporary. Do you ever read Omegaverse? Do you ever read paranormal? Is there
So
ever
it
any kind
just,
of
yeah, a little bit. So like,
Mhm.
my I did read Elizabeth Dare's, Omega Unleashed book.
Oh yeah,
I did
yeah,
read the
the
second one.
Dylan
Yes,
Sinclair,
yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So that's the second one is on my list this month to read.
Hmm.
I've read your book as well, loved it. So like I usually will read like one, or I
Yeah.
can only have
Hmm.
um, one or two that I will. A Megaverse, I'm still
Right.
kind of trying to dip my toes in. But
Yeah.
paranormal,
Hmm.
yeah, I will kind of go back and forth and like. flip back and
Hmm.
forth between contemporary and paranormal.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of like that with monster romance. I read them from time to time, not every month, not every one that
Hmm.
comes out. I have to be kind of in the mood for it. It's a moody read thing. Yeah. But when I am, yeah, that's all I want to read.
Yeah. I think because at first, like when I started reading My Choose, like most everything was paranormal or academy. And so I just read so
Right.
much of
Mhm.
that in the beginning that now it's like, okay, now, I read more of the contemporary stuff because that's
I think
also what I
it's
write.
yeah,
But
I love to see the relationship dynamic applied to different situations.
hmm
Some of my favorite things are sort of oddball ones. Like Grace McGinty's Bull Rider one. Loved
hmm
that one. Yeah, 7 seconds fly or 8 seconds to
hmm
fly.
yeah, 8 seconds.
And Yep, thank you. And there's one about cave diving um, that is fascinating to me. I like
Was
these
that
ones that kind of
Clear Nights, I think?
cave cave diving. Yeah, Diver's
Yeah.
Heart, maybe it's called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I love it when it's something different, something new, something that I hadn't thought that dynamic through in that situation. Yeah. Which I think is also why the sports stuff is so interesting to me is the team dynamics bring a whole new level
hmm
of yeah. I was really into hockey last year for a little while, like reading every hockey thing that came out that had, a poly bent to it.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah. Do you play any sports or is this just sort of a fascination for you? Were you like a sporty girl in high school and college?
Not really. I played softball until like, fifth
Hmm.
grade or something, but I wasn't like great at it.
Yeah.
And then I
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
went and did band and then color guard. So like that was about where my
Hmm.
sport athletic abilities lie. But I've just always loved
Hmm.
reading sport romances. I think because of the conflict can be like not necessarily always the relationship because it can be like,
Yeah.
the world
Hmm.
part and like, how that's going to work in a job or like if their sports
Yeah.
and just
Hmm.
all the other implications of that. So I've read a
Very
lot of
cool.
hockey
Yeah.
books too, my
Oh my
myself.
God, so many hockey books. I love the Jacksonville Rays ones by
hmm
Emily Rath. Yeah, I really enjoyed those. Um, I've liked a lot of them though, and I do like the ones where the Omega Verse hockey thing kind of crossover sometimes. Those are
hmm
very cool. Yeah. Um, yeah, I've had this idea about writing an Omega Verse with a rowing team for a
Oh, that'd be
while.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought, little tiny coxswains, big giant guys, it just seems to work well.
Yeah.
But also the coxswain's kind of in charge and yelling at them all the
hmm
time. I think that could work. So yeah, I might that would be the way I would go if I did the
I'd
the
read that.
sports. Yeah. Would you read that? Yeah, I keep
I would.
asking it. I keep floating it and going, are people going to be interested in this?
Yeah. I mean, with Olympics, it definitely, I just watched that movie with the boys in the boat
Yeah, and
and that
and
was
rowers
really,
are
yeah.
super hot. Yeah.
hmm
No question asked. Yeah. Okay, let me look at some of our questions. I forwarded Kris a list of questions, and I'm trying to ask at least a few of them, and not just go where the muse is taking me on this. All right. Who is your favorite character that you've written? Gosh, that's hard to even ask and expect a serious answer. Do you have one that
Yeah.
you're super fond of?
So I filled out every question except for that one.
Okay, well, let's
I
skip
was
it.
like,
We don't have to do
no,
it.
you're
There's
fine.
no rules. There's no rules. We don't have to answer it.
It's just because I'm like, it's hard to, I think it's easier if you ask me in that book that I just wrote, like what's my favorite character from
Okay,
that book
okay.
because it's harder to
So
pick
out of
overall.
Cruel Steps, out of
hmm
Cruel Steps, but there aren't no. I mean, which of the characters in Cruel Steps um, is your favorite? And this is kind of interesting because as an author, I know that your favorite may not be the easiest one to write,
hmm
you know, and it may not be the person that your readers are loving either, which can sometimes be hard when you feel like something that you really love isn't getting as much love as you would
hmm
like. Yeah. So, okay, well, Cruel Steps, who is your favorite?
Um, so Coulter, I definitely loved him, but I also really loved JoJo. She was just like so funny and just
Yeah.
like just didn't care.
Yeah.
And
She was kind of your comic relief in a sense.
mm-hmm,
I love that character. I love it when it's
mm-hmm.
like the roommate who shows up and just kind of cut. I guess there's actually a term for it in like writing for the stage or plays. The like the raisonneur, the person who kind of comes in and goes blah 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 is happening and then leaves. You know?
Yeah.
I always enjoy those people. Yeah. Okay, that's a great one. Let's see. Has your family read your smutty scenes, or do you give them clean versions of your books?
No, they haven't read any at all. Uh, it probably was like a year before I even told them that I had started writing
Mhm.
books. And then I was
Right.
like, I'm not going to tell you my pen name. And so please don't even, if you happen to ever figure it out, please do not
Just
read.
don't. Just don't.
Just don't.
Just
So,
don't.
but I had
Mhm.
some family members come with me to a
Mhm.
signing this past April in Denver. And
Mhm.
someone asked them, like, so what's your favorite? And they were just like, oh, they're not allowed to read.
Yeah,
So,
it's funny when your life kind of crosses from. Uh, I know I had my my daughter had her first child just a few weeks ago,
well,
and
congratulations.
my well, thank you very much. I am now a grandmother, and my Discord put together a flower, like a nice bouquet to be delivered for her. And it said something funny on the card, and she was just like, I'm so used to this at this point. Your weird readers are sending us stuff again. I was like, yeah, they're awesome. We love our weird readers. Um, yeah, in that case, it was from my cult. Yeah, because of the book club. Okay, so which do you think which series do you believe is your best? Not your most popular, but the one you're proudest of, or
So,
books. I don't. It doesn't have to be a series,
yeah,
just book.
I think Dark Confession series because it was just more, that was like probably the most emotionally raw series I've ever had to
Mm-hmm,
be.
mm-hmm,
Because I was dealing with a lot more, like emotions and just life stuff in general with that
mm-hmm.
series.
Yeah.
And so, like, that one was probably the most vulnerable I was just in general as
Mm-hmm.
a author.
Did you write a lot of yourself into the FMCs or?
Yeah, especially my first three, there's definitely
Mm-hmm,
like parts of me in all of them, more than
mm-hmm,
probably now. But there's still part of
mm-hmm.
me in all of them just because, I think you kind
Right.
of just naturally do that. But especially those first three, because it's like, like
Mm-hmm.
trying to, like work out like emotions and self-expression and
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the quirky things that
I'm.
you like to say that no one else wants to hear. Like you can put it in a book and then they have to.
They have to say it. It's like
Exactly.
having little dolls to play with. Okay. Name something on your bucket list.
Um, I, have had a pretty like not adventurous life, but like I've done a lot of things. So
Mm-hmm,
like traveling really is probably just I want to do some more traveling in the places, but I have been to a lot of places. I've
mm-hmm.
had a lot of amazing experiences in my life. So I really struggled. I was like, what is something that I still wish I could do?
That's a great place to
Yeah,
be, in my opinion.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'm always coming up with new stuff that I like to try or do. And yeah, I think it's a good thing when you're like, I have done and been and eaten and experienced. I'm
yeah.
good.
Like I still want to, like do some traveling places, but yeah, like but otherwise,
Yeah.
I mean, I went to Harry Potter Studios last year with my best friend, so that was
I
pretty
have
much,
a plan for
like
that.
life goal
Yeah.
made.
Yeah, I'm a huge like most of my readers know
Hmm.
this already because if I talk about it a lot, but I really enjoy fan fiction, always
Hmm.
have, and in particular Hermione, which
Hmm.
is the which is the Hermione Draco pairing.
Hmm.
There are some amazing fanfic writers out there, real writers who just do this as sort of a hobby thing under a different name and are amazing. And yeah, I have a thing. I really, really need to go to the studios and see the Death Eaters. And yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's worth it.
Well, that's good because I'm going to do that. Okay. Is there a trope that you would never write? Is there anything
Hmm.
that you were like, that's not something I like reading? That's not something I would ever put down?
I mean, obviously, love triangle. Like, boo.
Yeah.
Won't ever
Oh,
write
well, yeah, that's,
that.
nobody has answered that yet. And that's
Yeah.
so true. Yet all of us are the people I've been interviewing so far were all why choose. So
Hmm.
gosh, that's a great answer. Yeah. Who wants to make anyone choose? Okay.
And I'm trying to
Good,
think
good,
if
good.
there's
Mm-hmm.
um none of other ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the only one that I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I get irrationally angry if I think there's even one lining up. Like, you know.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, too,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
Dawson's Creek, they did me wrong growing up,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, I just can't do it
Yeah.
anymore. It hurts my heart.
Oh, poor Pacey.
I
Okay.
know.
Well, I mean, for me, I really, really enjoyed Southern Vampire Mysteries, True Blood,
Hmm.
and the Eric Bill thing. It just, I mean,
Hmm.
it made me angry while I was watching it. It made me
Hmm.
angry the way it ended. And I spent like a year just kind of simmering on it and then thought, I am going to write a different ending just to make myself feel better. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I found fan fiction. So, yeah.
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 Yeah, that's one of
Okay.
those too, because there's a lot of great characters in that series as well.
Oh my God, yeah, really. She just hit it out of the park with that one. Really good characterization, really funny. It just appealed to me on a lot of levels, but I
Hmm.
think I could be wrong, and my apologies to Charlene Harris if I am. I feel like she probably was under a lot of pressure for the last 5 or 6 books because of how well the HBO series had done.
Hmm.
And I think maybe she made some decisions that didn't look like they lined up with the earlier ones that she made. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like
Yeah.
she was kind of telegraphing this is how it was going to go, and then it suddenly wasn't going that way anymore. And it seemed to be matching the series on television more than,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I think maybe sometimes that happens, if it does
Yeah.
really, really well, you probably get really nervous. I don't know what that's like, but I would imagine it's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Pressure.
so let me ask you about MM.
Hmm.
So man on man now. What do you find about it? What do you find about MM, straight MM without a female in the middle,
Hmm.
that is compelling to you?
So I was actually talking about this with a couple of friends, and a lot of it is that
Mm-hmm.
there's no misogyny in them romances. Like
Okay.
you can kind of just read the romance without having to deal with kind of that power difference. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of
Okay.
freeing in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. Um, and I think I like too just seeing the toxic masculinity also gone. Like it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
like
I
nice
am
to see that.
yeah. I'm a simp for a really sensitive, a feminine leaning male.
Hmm.
Whether they're like bi and in a why choose, or I have a thing. There's like a character, like I would call it in Omega verse, it's usually the male Omega, or they show up in books from here to there. And I'm just, yeah, I really, really like them. Um and there's something, and I think that's really true about the misogyny. Now my brain is still kind of turning that over and going,
Hmm.
yes, it takes away some of the pressure of
Hmm.
having to fight it while you're reading it and writing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Hmm. And the toxic masculinity is a thing.
Yeah.
Would you ever read Mpreg?
I actually have read one. So when my
Oh,
like a
okay.
couple, probably in beginning of COVID,
Hmm.
my one of my friends that was like, you need to read MM books, and so she was, or in Omegaverse. I'd never heard of it
Hmm.
before, and so she gave me a book to read, and it was an Impreg one, and I was like, oh, this is
Hmm.
different.
We had a really good conversation on my Discord about butt babies, and that's all I'm gonna say. Um, I really liked Mannix, Grace McGinty's Mpreg MM. situation there.
Mhm.
And I kind of dug the way that she did the anatomy. um, I can't see myself ever pulling it off though. I
Yeah,
just don't know if I can. Yeah. That is one of those tropes that I will read and not write.
yeah.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Which book was your favorite to write? Which one flew off your fingers and out into the ether with hardly a snag?
The easiest probably was Damaged Dreams, which is the first book in the Council series.
Yeah, we were
Um,
talking about how that first book
yeah,
is just, yeah.
yeah. I think though
Yeah.
my favorite to write was probably Riddle Deceit, just
Oh,
because
okay.
I wrote it like I did like a
Hmm.
lot of polls in my group, and so it was more of a like my reader group helped like
To
identify
shape
some
it a
of the
little.
characteristics, yeah,
Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
characters
Hmm.
and what they were going to do, and like what their jobs were going to be, and
You
so it
did
was
your
kind
own
of like,
choose your own story. You
yeah,
made your own choose your own story for your group. That's awesome.
yeah, it was
Okay.
like a love letter to
Hmm.
like them and what they wanted, and I also just put a lot of quirkiness of myself into that
Hmm.
character.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it takes place where I went to college. And so, like, it
Hmm.
was nice to go back to, like, small southern town. And, like, she doesn't cuss. And so, like, it was fun kind of, finding different ways to, like,
Yeah.
say things. And so, like, I don't know, it was just, there's still some, like, grief and, trauma and, stalker
Hmm.
or something like that, cough,
It
cough.
can't be
But,
all, yeah.
but there's a lot of humor in that one. And so it just, like, it was just
Hmm.
really fun.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, you seem to release pretty often. How long does it take you to pull a book together and get it out?
So this year I have slowed down.
Okay.
But yeah, the past couple of years I was doing like 9 to 11 books a year, which is pretty ridiculous. So
And working.
last,
Yeah.
yeah, and working.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
last year, before I had an editor that I used that was pretty
Hmm.
um, what's the word, like flexible. And so
Yeah.
whenever I
Hmm.
would just finish a book, I could be like, hey, like, what do you have available in the next couple of weeks? And I can get it in with her.
Right. Hmm.
She would have it done in a week, and then I could, do arcs and
Work.
stuff. And so
Yeah.
like when I
Yeah.
finished the book,
Hmm.
I could have it out in like a month.
Yeah.
This year, it's definitely I had to find a new editor, and so
Hmm.
there's a couple that I've been using, but both are pretty booked out all the time.
Hmm.
I told myself I wouldn't put stuff up for pre-orders this year until I had the book finished, and so you know it just depends on their
Hmm.
schedule. And then one of them, she's like a 5 week person
Hmm.
that does the
Yeah.
editing.
Mhm.
So then you have to add in, all that time. So
Right.
that
Right.
takes
Yeah.
a little bit longer now. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. I have one editor who is very like I can take it whenever. Yeah. I'll
Hmm.
get it right back to you. Yeah, and that's very, very convenient.
It was,
But
yes.
I've definitely worked with ones where you ask for like a 2 week period, 3 months ahead, and if you miss that, you've missed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, let's see. Got about 15 more minutes. Let me make sure I hit all of these really good questions. Um, what are the hardest scenes for you to write? Are you one of those people who struggles with your steamier scenes or your more emotionally vulnerable scenes or comedy? What's action?
I think action probably,
Hmm.
because emotion stuff is, like that's pretty much my forte. So like
Yeah.
I
Okay.
dive deep into those things. Uh, and then so action can be harder at times, trying to
Hmm.
figure out all the moving pieces and how things are going to play out scene wise. Um, and then like the dating culture stuff sometimes with like
Hmm.
the characters, because I've been married for 11 years and my husband for 14. So like sometimes
Oh,
I do feel
that's
my
super interesting. Oh yeah.
age, and that I don't really, and
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
it's such a different culture now with like dating. And even though
Yeah.
we met online dating, it was very much different
Hmm.
than it is now because we didn't have the
Yeah.
apps that they do.
I have been married for 30 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear you. Well, 29, I guess. 28, 29. It's getting up there. It's close.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really thought about that before, but yeah, there's a lot that I pick up from just sort of reading other people's experiences.
Hmm.
I read a lot of Reddit just to get
Yeah,
an idea
that's
of
been
like
my saving
what
grace.
relationships are like. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. um, what so how do you approach writing steamier scenes? Are they something that you save up and do a bunch of them at the end? Are they something that you write as you're moving? Do you tend to write fairly straight through, or do you write around different scenes?
I'm very much a linear person, so I write,
Linear. Okay.
um, and
Hmm.
there's the last. So I just finished writing Puck Match, and then
Hmm.
last year the Pitch Slap. For some reason, both those books, I get halfway in them and I'm like, nope, this isn't feeling right. So I had to stop and go back and rewrite it and fix like the
Hmm.
pacing of what I felt was off, because I needed it to be right in my head before I could move forward.
Yeah.
But the so I yeah, whenever the steamy scenes are there, that's where I write them then. Usually I'll
Good.
have been like thinking about them maybe at the time of like, okay, this is what like what they're gonna do, or just like, okay, what are these
Hmm.
characters gonna do today? But
Do you remember the
yeah.
first one that you ever wrote? I need to add
Um
this as a question for everybody because I asked somebody this and I think it's a really funny question. Because I have like a real visceral memory of like I knew I was going to have to write this scene. It was the first time I'd ever written one like at length, and I started writing and then I got to the end and it was 8,000 words. I was like, shit, that's really long. Okay, well, let's think about this. And then I wrote
I
another
don't
one later in the book, and I totally forgot that one of the people that was supposed to be in it was there. And so I started imagining him just sort of sitting in the car, like watching. Just totally forgot there was another person involved. I've gotten better, but yeah.
yeah, I remember. I'm trying to think. I don't remember
Hmm.
if there was anything that happened when I think I just
Hmm.
already kind of had it envisioned. But
You did
um
it. You were a natural.
yeah,
Good.
I don't know
That's
about that,
great.
but I do remember that my beta readers, when they were going through it, they're like, you use the word cock 19 times in like four paragraphs. And so I was like, oh, okay. So that was kind of a funny thing. I was like, all right. So I had to
I need
like
to add
change
that
that
to my
up,
list.
and
Yeah.
go uh
Hmm.
figure out different ways to say stuff. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah, well, that's actually a good question. Like, what kind of stuff do you overuse? And do you ever like insert sort of like Easter eggs into your stuff? Do you ever do callbacks to other series that maybe
Yeah.
can
Especially
you give
because
us an
like right now,
example?
yeah,
Hmm.
so like I just finished Puck Match, which is part
Hmm.
it's characters from the Lex Malice series, which were took place at the same place the Council series took place. And so like there's a lot of characters from that Lex Malice series and
From
Puck
that
Match.
universe. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But then I even had a crossover with the Dark Confession series where Sawyer and
Hmm.
them go and meet some of the other younger characters in that series.
Hmm.
So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Easter eggs. I think it's like the inner geek inside me is just
Hmm.
like, ooh, I know that, I know that. I was just actually Elizabeth Deere is watching us,
Hmm.
and so is Mary Bright, and I was just thinking
Hi,
about how
Elizabeth.
I, I was just thinking about how I just got Elizabeth's permission to use one of her wolf pack names in my books, which no one will ever probably notice except us, but it like gives me a little bounce of, like a little dopamine hit,
Hmm.
silly as that is.
Well, I actually did that too in my first book because CJ Cook was one of the first people that was
Hmm.
telling me like you should just try it, you should write a book. And I was
Yeah.
alpha reading for her at the time, and so I put her book
Hmm.
in there that the characters were reading. So that was kind of like a little fun thing.
That's awesome. I wonder how many of us start out as alpha readers because I signed on with Sam Hall
Hmm.
and alpha read for her for about a year and a half, maybe a year and a half. And she's still a really good friend and resource for me and just has been
Hmm.
wonderful. Um, But yeah, it was like I thought, well, let me just watch how somebody really good
Yeah,
does this first and decide if that's something that I might be able to do. And of course, I picked someone who writes a million words a day and does
she
it
does
like
write a
in the
lot.
cleanest output you can imagine, right into the doc. Yeah, it was not like there. I spent a lot of months going, why can't I do this as well as she does? And yeah, that's okay. All right. Let's see. If you had to pick a, you love this one. If you had to pick a harem from all your characters, from all your books, who would be in it? And would they be
um,
different? And would they all be different? Like, would you have archetypes? I guess that's what I want to know.
well, I was thinking about that, and then I started
Mm-hmm.
to like pick the ones. I'm like, they're kind of all the same. Like, yeah, because the grumpy
That's
characters are always
exactly
my
what Eve
favorites.
Vale. Oh my God, Eve Vale said exactly the same thing last week. She's like, I'm going to pick them,
Yeah,
but they're all going to be cinnamon roll. And I was like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. The grumpy cimarrones, but the only ones that kind of did stand out was Graham and Tucker, which are from my baseball series, and their nickname is Package Deal, and so they're a package deal. But one is a cinnamon roll, one is total golden
Mm-hmm.
retriever. But they're just like two of the absolute best. Um, and so like of course they would have to come. They would have to annoy the other characters because the other ones are all broody, like grumpy, pretend like
I
they don't
know I
care.
yeah, I couldn't consider this without starting to wonder about like who would end up hooking up and who would like who, and if you put them
Yeah.
all in a room together, what would happen? Yeah.
I did that with a I did that like I was doing like these little serial Friday things I think a couple years ago in
Oh,
my
did
group,
you? You
and
wrote
I
your
would
own
have
fan
like
fiction.
yeah, I did. I was like, okay, what characters do
Wonderful.
you want to see meet? And it was pretty funny to see how these characters interacted with each other from other worlds. It was really funny.
All right. That's really good. I love that. We've actually talked about that with Marches. Is like once I get a little distance on it, I might do some AU, some alternative universe. Like what would
Hmm.
happen if, what happened if Thomas never left his pack and never went to Vegas? Like how would that have all worked out? Yeah, interesting stuff.
Hmm.
Okay. What I'd like to do is we have about 8 minutes left. I really want to know what you have planned for the future. I want to know what you're planning, what you're working on next. Are you taking a break?
So I just finished edits. I sent it to editor on Monday
Mm-hmm.
for
Wow.
Puck Match, which is a
Mm-hmm.
college hockey book with a non-binary main character. Um,
I'm a
so
fan
that's
already.
I'm,
Did you
I
everybody
was
hear
really
that? Non-binary main character. All right,
I'm doing
hockey,
that.
go.
I was really nervous because like I loved that character from Lex Vermalis, and so everybody wanted their
Mhm.
story, and I was like, ah, like I
Yeah.
was really nervous about writing it, but I hope I did Reese good because they definitely deserve a story.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I just finished that series, so
Hmm.
I am kind of debating where to go next because what I had
Oh,
planned, I'm not sure if that's where my mind really wants to go. So
okay.
but I have a couple MM books that I need to write for next year. There's like a Beetlejuice-esque Halloween one, a lumberjack,
Ooh,
a lumberjack
yeah.
MM one that I was part of an
A
anthology. I want to,
lumberjack one. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Tell me more.
It was an
Tell me all
anthology, and
about the
so I
beards.
have like there's like
I saw
I
the
think ten
lumberjack
thousand.
anthology.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
yes. Hmm.
10,000 words. So like that was like the prequel of how they met, and then there's going to be
Oh my
another
God.
story for
Okay, well,
them.
I'm gonna be definitely picking that up now. Yeah, I had no idea you were in that. I'm
Yeah,
making a little note here. Lumberjack anthology. We love
I
the
think it's actually
lumberjack.
discontinued now, but I
Yeah.
can hook you up with at least my story.
I would
Um,
probably really like that. Yeah. Um, so
and then I
you've
also
mentioned
still have my
Go
baseball
ahead.
series to
Mhm.
continue to, but there's some other stories that are kind of wanting to come out instead. So we'll see what happens.
That's exciting to be at that place where don't have you don't have anything really hanging over your head that's too like I've got to get this next thing done,
Yeah,
you know.
it's been the year of
Hmm.
standalones for me, which has been nice. I think I needed that break that I could kind of switch back and forth and be done with the story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
everybody wants Quill Steps to have more books.
I am definitely once Meet Your Maker is out the door, I'm going to be doing standalones for a little
Yeah,
bit, I think.
it is
Yeah.
nice little break. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the series sort of the grinder that you go through to get to the end of a series is
Yeah.
it's really hard to explain to people because
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense that the first book is so much easier than the fourth book, not in like a but yeah, it's hard to live in that place for so long and with those
Hmm.
characters, and it can get a little stale, and it can get a
Hmm.
little, yeah, it gets harder and harder to kind of come up with the, oh boy, I can't wait to sit down and write today.
Yeah. Well, I think it was
Yeah.
actually, I think it was Elizabeth Dare. We were talking about this last year that
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like by the last book, the emotional plot, has kind of already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time you get to the last
Mm-hmm.
book, that's not really moving the story. And so you're like, like that part that's the fun part to write.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And what is you we talked about epilogues a little bit before we came on. Um, is there um do you have a way of approaching the epilogue? Do you feel like the readers expect it, they want babies, they want marriage, or do you feel like a happy for now is enough? Or how do you approach it?
It just depends on the story and the character. I've done them all
Mm-hmm.
differently. Some of them, like it just kind of shows like now that they've overcome this challenge, what they're doing. Sometimes it does
Mm-hmm.
include, them starting a family or getting married, but not
Mm-hmm.
always because I feel like
Right.
that's not always realistic for everybody. And, and so
And
sometimes it does just,
in poly relationships, I feel like sometimes that's like, so one person gets this, and or does
hmm
everyone get married? How does it work?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, let's look. Is there one more? What is your go-to writing drink?
Oh, so I'm boring. I gave up caffeine this year, so I really only drink water. So yeah, I'm really boring.
I'm sad for you. Let me suck down some iced tea for you. It's still pretty good. Okay. So not big on your drinkies. Do you have like a snack that you really like, or do you have a way of celebrating? Like I know a lot of people finish their books and then they have like a special drink or something. Do you have any sort of routine like that?
Um, Not really anymore.
Okay.
Kind of just like, whew, done. Now I can go, I guess I reward myself with being able to read. Like, okay, you can go read and not feel guilty now.
I absolutely use that as my carrot
Yeah.
dangling right in front of me for sure.
And sometimes I'll
Mm-hmm.
play Switch with my best friend. We'll be like, all right, let's play some Dreamlight Valley now.
Do you play Dreamlight Valley? Me too. I play
Yes.
Stardew Valley and Dreamlight Valley and Animal Crossing. And
Yes,
I'm really
same,
into
same,
Hello
same.
Kitty right now. Hello Kitty is on
No.
iOS though. Very good. Hello Kitty Adventure Island is not crappy. It's actually really good, which shocked me. Okay. So same thing. We both enjoy the gaming and the reading as a way to kind of move
Mm-hmm.
ourselves forward. Yeah. Um, let me see if there's anything else in here. Oh, so we talked a little bit about non-binary characters. So just really quick, would you consider writing FF into a book?
So I do have FF in a couple of the novellas. So like
Okay.
Cam in the Dark Confession series, Reckless is her novella, and so she has a
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend in that series. And then
Mm-hmm.
FSK, it's about three best friends. It's mostly focused on Holland, but at the end in the epilogue, I did give each the other girls a chapter to have like their ending as well. And one of them,
Mm-hmm.
Joy, she has an FF relationship in that too. So I
Ooh, I'm
have
gonna have to
done,
check this out.
yeah,
I
FSK
think
is
I
a
may again.
standalone
I'm just
too, so at least
making.
it's
Mhm.
shorter.
Yeah,
But
I'm over
so I
here
have done
making
it in a
lists.
few.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. And yeah, I can't think of anything else that we need to know. Let me make sure that I don't have any other questions here. Did I get to all of them? Um, and did we ask if you could live in a book? I didn't ask this one. Sorry, this is one of Chloe's. Yeah, so if you could sort of live in one of your books and one of your situations, sort of inhabit, I guess, the character, who would you choose? Like, where would you want to be? Is there one that you're
Ooh.
like, wow, that just, I would really enjoy that?
I mean, if I could be, I always wanted to be an ice skater when I was growing up. So if I really
Mhm.
could be an ice skater like Sawyer, that would probably be pretty awesome.
So cool. I know. I know. You know,
And
I
plus, she
read,
has 7 guys, so
she has a really big group.
she
You
does.
know, I read, I think I found Mariana Zapata. Is that her name? She
Hmm.
wrote From Lukov with Love. And like I
Yes.
was reading through all of her books and I found Lukov. And that's actually what started me down the, gosh, has anyone else written something good about ice skaters? And I looked around. I think I might have even asked for suggestions. And that's how I got to Damaged Dreams.
Yeah. And I
So
was like, I
yeah,
love ice skating. There's not any ice skating books. I'm going to write one.
I think that's a great idea. I love the
Yeah.
idea of taking on new sports, as you probably can tell.
Yeah.
All right, we're all done. Can you imagine? Thank you
It went
so
by
much
fast.
for
Yeah.
joining me, Miss Butler.
Thank you
You
for
are
having me.
fascinating and a wonderful, wonderful writer. And I strongly suggest anyone who is watching this now or may catch it on YouTube. Kris writes some really good books. In fact, I'm going to be going and checking out Dark Confessions next because I did not get to those. And I can tell you that Cruel Steps is a sort of non-bully bully romance, and it's wonderful. And it's an MFM, which I think representation. So read it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for anyone who's watching. I will see
Thank
you
you.
guys in a couple weeks. All right, bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.